more sales can actually kill you if you don't understand what cash flow even means. Cash coming in, cash going out, right? And hopefully there's some left over at the end of each day, each week, each month that carries over to the new balance for the next period, cash flow period. Whenever we're like most business owners, when it comes to financial statements, the thing they're looking at is their profit and loss statement. And in the profit and loss statement, it can show income coming in, the money going out as cost of goods and expenses. And then at the end of the statement, at the end of the P&L, hopefully there's money left over. It's like there's $15,000 left over. That's a pretty good net margin. Now, we've had a number of conversations with clients where it's like, well, where is the money? Because it's not in the bank.
Hit up the family.
So why are we not, why is the financial statement says we're doing good, yet we're stressed? And Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Hey, Thriving in Tandem family. It's another exciting episode with Robert and Kaylee.
Hi, guys.
So welcome back. And today we're going to talk about the top 3 reasons business struggle. I don't know if it's the top 3, but it's 3 of the more common reasons. And I'm pulling this from, part of it from our own experience.
And clients.
And clients. That's kind of what I talk about, our experience. Our own business experience for our own business, but also, clients. But I'm also pulling from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, wrote an article or did some research around the top reasons for business struggles and ultimate failures. And I'll just list the top 5, and we're only going to pick 3 of them because they're very common issues. Well, I guess they're all common, but I'm going to pick 3, mainly for the sake of time. So number 1 is cash flow management. And number 2 was, I got to look at my notes because I'm not looking at the notes. Anyways, cash flow problems. Number 2, no market demand. So we're not going to touch on that because we're going to assume that you're in business for a while. So there's got to be some demand, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not, this is mainly for startups, but sometimes if you're 2-3 years in and you feel like you're struggling, maybe you might have to look at that kind of poor demand. But anyways, we're not going to touch on that today. Number 3 is poor management, which really is a reflection of the owner. So when it talks about poor management in the Chamber of Commerce article or research, really talk about the owners as the bottleneck. And if you're honest with yourself, and even for me, right, we're usually the bottleneck to growth because the more we control as owners, the more we control or oversee, micromanage and all that, the less things can grow.
The more we keep things stuck from moving forward.
And then number 4 is lack of capital, insufficient capital, which really ties into, even though in the research they're talking about as far as not getting quite access to capital from loans or investments or whatever. But ultimately also it's just run out of money, right? They're talking about money issue, which really ties into number 1 is a cash flow issue. So number 1 and 4 actually are really one and the same. They're just a different lack of capital is kind of a subset or kind of an outcome of poor cash flow management, really what it is. So we're going to talk about 1 and 4 a little bit. And then the last one that we're going to touch upon, or the 5th one on the list from the Chamber of Commerce, but the 3rd one on our list, man, this is confusing today. Anyways, it'll be all good. We're going to pull it all together. But number 5 on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce research, the top 5 reasons or the top reasons for business struggle, the number 5 on the list was human capital, the hiring, the training, the culture, the turnover, right? And I'm sure for you that have teams, even a small team, are nodding their heads because, pretty much all of our clients at least have a small team. So whether a small team or a large team, seems like business always talking the same issues. Hard to find good help, how to retain good help. And there's a turnover issue. Then ultimately there's a culture issue too. So all to say is those are the top reasons, the 5 of the top reasons from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce research. We're going to pick 3 of them, which really one is cash flow and lack of capital, which is really one and the same or part of the same conversation. And then the human capital issue. We may or may not get to all of it. So we'll see how it goes. If you're on YouTube, you can see us laughing, Haley laughing at me. If you're just listening on the podcast, just know that my wife is laughing at me because I sound unorganized, even though I am. Got notes. I got plenty of notes.
You know it too well. I'm chuckling because you're like so well organized every day.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's because it's late in the day. I don't know what it is. Late in the day, late in the week. So anyways, let's get into it. I think that was a great introduction by me. So let's just roll into it. And hopefully the editor does some magic on this. Anyways, so let's talk about the cash flow, the money issue. And we talked about this before. Usually we talk about from a pricing and cost issue, but it's kind of big picture. Like this is, if you notice in the top 5 reasons on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce research, none of it had to do with marketing sales, right? And goes back to what we talked about a lot is when the business is struggling, we're not doing financially well, the number one thing we go to is try to get more sales, right? Yet just clearly in the research, that's not even a top issue. Now, lack of market demand, that's part of a marketing issue, but that really goes back to research, right? That's not just, anyways, all to say, let's not get down that rabbit trail, but all to say is marketing and sales isn't usually the main issue. And if you see, right, 2 of the top 5 reasons have to do with money management.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
and I think this can happen at the very beginning
yeah.
because we've known people, they're going to start a business, a coffee business, construction, whatever kind of business it is, and they way underestimate how much they think it's going to cost to do the build out or just to get started.
So, as we've said before, the Achilles heels for most business owners is financial management, because we don't like it. We don't like to deal with it. So therefore, we either relegate it to somebody that we think is qualified, but often isn't. Like they relegate it to a bookkeeper, which cash flow management, bookkeepers aren't necessarily skilled at cash flow management. They're skilled at just the number, the credits and the debits.
They put in the data that you give them.
Yeah. They just organize it.
Make it
But
look
as
pretty.
far as strategically going, hey, you don't have enough money this month, digging into the reasons why, your bookkeeper and a lot of times even your accountant isn't qualified to deal with it. So,
And they don't even look for that stuff because they're just they're want to just put the numbers in, and so at the end of the year you can turn it in for your taxes.
so let's talk about cash flow, right? Whenever people hear this conversation about lack of cash flow, the go-to solution is going to be get more sales. So let's talk about that, because we're just going to give you this example of how more sales can actually kill you if you don't understand what cash flow even means. So it's pretty intuitive, but it's basically cash coming in, cash going out, right? And hopefully there's some left over at the end of each day, each week, each month that carries over to the new balance for the next period, cash flow period. So whenever we're like most business owners, and when it comes to financial statements, the thing they're looking at is their profit and loss statement. And in the profit and loss statement, it can show income coming in, money going out as cost of goods and expenses. And then at the end of the statement, at the end of the P&L, hopefully there's money left over. And so a lot of times, so let's say, for example, let's say you had $1,000 that came in that period in income, and after expenses, looks like there's $15,000 left over, right? That's a pretty good margin. That's a pretty good net margin. Now, we've had a number of conversations with clients where it's like, well, where is the money? Because it's not in the bank, right?
Because I don't see it.
Because we are, we're having to get a bridge loan or some kind of cash advance or something to cover it.
Or hit up the family.
So why are we not, why is the financial statement says we're doing good, yet we're stressed? And so understand that in most profit and loss statements, it's set on an accrual basis. I mean, your accountant or bookkeeper probably set as a bookkeeper, or just defaulted when you created your QuickBooks, or whoever set it up, your accounting, it probably defaulted to an accrual basis, which means the income coming in, that might be money that might be money that's documented, like income coming in or revenue coming in, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's money in the bank.
Doesn't mean you received it. Yeah.
Right. Because if you're, even like us, coaches and consultants, a lot of times we'll invoice clients. Well, we don't get paid right away. There's a day or two lag. Sometimes they lag a bit longer, right? And then if you're in construction, right, you've quoted for the job, you're starting to invoice, but you don't necessarily get payment right away. You may on the books said, hey, this is a $10,000 job, but again, it's not money in the bank. And so there's manufacturing. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of business. Think about it for yourself. Do you get paid right away for the services or the products that you sell?
Yeah. A lot of people don't, and we even know people that hate to do the billing. They are, like, 6 months behind, and they are having issues with cash flow, and we're like, "We just wanna lock you in a room and have you invoice," because she was trying to do everything. Get all these invoices out while the people still have the money, and you can get caught up so that you can pay your bills and be cash flowing again.
So this is a medical office, and so they build insurance companies. So they don't get paid until the insurance companies pay them. So in the meanwhile, they're providing a service for the patient. Patient goes off on their merry way,
Mhm,
got what they needed. In the meantime, the business owner is lagging on billing insurance companies. And even if you're on top of it, just from my pharmaceutical experience, even if you're on top of it, at best, you're going to get paid 30 days later. So imagine if you're lagging on billing the insurance company, right? So every gap, right, just compounds each other. So if you're for your business, it might not be billing insurance companies, but when you're billing clients, if you're not on top of invoicing right away, right, for every day you miss, right, that's another day lag on top of the lag that it takes the client or customer to eventually pay you,
mhm,
right? Because once they get the invoice, they may not pay you right away.
mhm.
Some do. Fortunately, our clients are pretty good about that. But,
And some people just don't like billing. I'm like, "Then
mm,
hire somebody because that's money that you service that you've already given that you need to be paid for."
yeah, I know when I was in pharmaceuticals, I mean, because of just the rise and increase on relying on insurance companies and HMOs, right? That physician offices, they had a team of billers, right?
Outsourced that
Because
did
it
it.
takes so much to bill insurance companies. So, anyways, yeah, definitely. If you can't handle it, if you're lagging behind, pay somebody to do it because it's better to pay somebody to do it. That just consider it as an investment,
Mm,
right? Because if you're not doing it, you're still not getting paid. So, avoiding paying somebody to do the invoicing and the billing, I mean, avoiding that is ridiculous because you're just losing money. Anyways, all I'm gonna say is so getting back to the cash flow issue. So think about your business. Do you get paid right away for services rendered or products that you deliver?
mhm.
Right? If there's, unless you're a retailer where like a coffee shop person comes in, they buy coffee, they charge right away, right? That's not an issue. But for a lot of businesses, right, there's usually a lag in when you're rendering services to when you actually get paid. So on the books, on a profit and loss statement, it'll show as income, but it's not money in bank. That's why the cash flow statement that you should have is very important to understand what is money going in. So the P&L is almost not quite a projection, but that's a snapshot in time on what's the revenue you should be generating based on what's invoiced or what's billed, where the cash flow statement is actually cash on hand. And also, what's not captured in the profit and loss statement is if you're paying credit cards.
Which that can really add up. We were just adding up today, we were wanting to do a date night dinner with a group of people, and you're just adding up what one service charges to pay through their system. I won't say what it is. All the fees added up to pay online.
And event listing service like Eventbrite and stuff like that. Yeah, they
Mhm.
pay a lot of
It
bills.
really added up, like, a lot,
Yeah.
the fees.
So, but there's that. But what I'm talking about too is that anyways, what I'm also talking about too is the liability stuff, like whatever loans you have outstanding that you have to pay. And not just credit cards, but if you have any vehicle loans or you have a SBA loan or whatever,
Mhm. Interest on the
that,
credit card,
yeah,
merchant service fees.
yeah, what we those aren't really expenses. You're paying back a loan, right? So that's not captured
Mhm.
in the profit and loss statement. That'll be captured in your cash flow statement, reflecting your balance sheet as a liability that you owe. But in the cash flow statement, it'll show everything that you pay from your expenses, your cost of goods, and your liabilities. Your liabilities that you're paying does not show up on the profit and loss statement. So again, another gap. So if you're wondering why, right, that your profit and loss statement is showing that you should have money left over, but you don't feel it, is a
Mhm.
lot of it is because either you have a lot of accounts receivable, right? That's you're not keeping up on, and or there's some liabilities that you're paying that you're not capturing on the profit and loss statement.
Well, it
So
could be too people that owe you that just haven't you billed them and they just haven't
yeah,
paid you
that's the accounts receivable.
for whatever reason, but no, but sometimes they just think they're gonna, maybe they're not gonna pay you. I don't know.
So that's why the understanding, and I'm just kind of hitting the tip of the iceberg here when it comes to cash flow, man. But all that to say is, let's move on a little bit. But understanding the cash flow is hugely important. So you're probably going to need not just a refresher on this, but you're going to need to hire an expert to really help you manage this. Because if you're one of those businesses that don't get paid right away,
Mhm.
right, for services rendered, then and as you grow, right, those issues can become even bigger. If you already have accounts receivable issues now, as you grow and get more sales, it's only going to multiply that challenge. That's why when it comes to growing and trying to use sales as a lever to make up for poor cash flow, that could really do you in. That's why a lot of businesses have gone bankrupt even when their sales were growing. If you kind of follow the logic a little bit, is that your payment of expenses is outpaying the payment receipt because you don't get paid right away. And at some point, right? So a lot of times to make up for the gaps in cash flow, that's why a lot of businesses will get lines of credit.
Mm.
Because let's say, for example, it's a manufacturing business, you get an order for X amount of products, right? You might get a deposit or you might get a percentage of that sale up front, but you don't get the full sale, at least cash in the bank, until the product's delivered. In the meantime, you have the expense of producing that product and then shipping it to the customer. Like fashion is a classic example. They'll get the order 6 to 8 months in advance. They're not paid in full up front. So therefore, they're eating up cost, the money that they have in reserve to make the the clothes to then get it to the customer and then they get paid. So imagine if you doubled sales in a situation like that and you have very little reserves to make it up. What are you going to do? You're going to get a line of credit or something like that. And you're paying interest on that line of credit, right? When you pay it back. So you can get in a world of hurt trying to increase sales when you're not able to manage the cash flow. So in other words, recommendation is figure that out. Don't grow. Speed can kill. So just be wary of that. Increasing sales, trying to, and like we just got off a discovery call recently and the business owners, they want to double, right? And so great, but let's make sure you're managing cash flow well. Because if you double sales and you're not managing cash flow well, that can actually do you in. I hope that makes sense. Look it up. You got ChatGPT, you got Claude, figure out, one thing you can do, and I've done this recently with a couple of clients, is I'll take the last 12 months P&L, profit and loss statement, cash flow statement, balance sheet, run it through ChatGPT and have it help you, look at some of the gaps in
But
the
you
business.
also know what to look at and what you're looking
Yeah.
for, because we help our clients with this all the time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you do need to give it a good prompt, let know what you're looking for, but basically it's still a good start, right? And then yeah, get a good financial expert. I would say get a good, a CPA that has a lot of experience with businesses and a business like yours. I would say, do some research around that. Anyways, cash flow, and that's why cash flow management and lack of capital, those two things can go hand in hand because if you're not managing cash flow well, you can basically run out of money, even though the profit and loss statement says you should have
Mhm.
money.
And you
Okay.
can run out of money pretty quickly.
And that's where the lack of capital comes in because you basically run out of money, which is basically, if you think about it, that's why businesses fail. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, they just run out of money. And so it's not usually a marketing and sales issue. It's a cash flow management issue. All right. So got a few moments. We can talk about the human capital side of things. We talked a little bit about financial capital. Let's talk about the human capital side of things. Common issue, right, is the team, finding good talent, retaining good talent. And, one of the, I guess challenges, well, the challenge is that's the challenge. So how do you, number one, find good talent? And for a lot of businesses, the one thing you can do is start by contracting someone just from whether it's a virtual assistant or a contract sales. Every position you can start on a contract basis. A lot of businesses, right? They're hiring right away. Now, if you're working 40 hours a week on all that, I mean, there's IRS laws and all that stuff that you got to be leery of. But at least on a temporary basis, you can hire on a contract basis. Now, especially after 90 days, definitely if they're working 40 hours a week, 30 hours a week, whatever, the IRS is going to start to look at them as an employee. So therefore, at that point, you'll definitely have to make a decision whether you retain them as employee or you let them go, right, as a
Mhm.
contractor. But anyways, that's always a good place to start is to contract. Like when I was in pharmaceuticals, we hired a whole team of contract salespeople. Now they were still technically employed by another company. The company was offering contract salespeople, so we hired them on contract there because, especially for a startup in a new product that was going to. So here's a this is kind of similar to cash flow. In pharmaceuticals, we have to ramp up the sales team before a drug's even approved. Because once the drug's approved, we want the sales team to hit the ground running, right, on day one. So which
So you're all
means
educated, you're good to go, you know
right. So which means
all
we
the
have
products.
to, as a company, we have to hire and train a whole sales team if we're not already going to use existing sales team, which a lot of times you have to at least hire more people, right? You may not, anyways, I won't get into all the nitty gritty details. We have to get people up and running before the drug's even approved. So, which means you're already on the hook for expenses,
Mhm.
right? Before even seeing revenue from the product. So, this is a cash flow issue too. A lot of farmers, and I got caught up in the middle of that when my last company I worked with, I was hired on as part of the new sales force to in preparation for a new drug, which did not get approved. A year after I was hired, we got ruling from the FDA that they weren't going to approve the drug. Now, this is also called the Martha Stewart drug. So you can research this. This is the drug that they didn't get approved. This is the one. It was this drug that was the reason for Martha Stewart going to jail. She was being accused of insider trading. So they got her on line to Congress. So they didn't get her on insider trading, but they got her on line to Congress because basically what happened was she sold her. She was friends with the owner of the drug that was being developed that we had licensed out. She got wind probably from the owner that the FDA wasn't going to approve it. She sold her stock before the official word came out.
The day before.
A couple days before, 2, 3 days before. So, anyways, the IRS is going after her for insider trading. They really didn't get her on that, but they did get her on line to Congress or line to the IRS. So, anyways, all to say is, where was I going with that? Yeah, we had to hire. I was part of that. I was on the new sales force. Um, that we were getting trained and all that. Drug didn't get approved. Of course, they started laying people off. Um, but ultimately, the drug finally got approved 3 years later. But anyways, all to say is this happened. This happened a lot in pharmaceutical industry.
And you ended up keeping your job even though
I
the
was able
the
to keep my job.
drug didn't get
Yeah.
approved when
Um,
you were there
so
first hired.
what the company did that moving forward after this happened, moving forward, what they did was anytime they need to hire significantly for the sales team, what they would do if there was some kind of expansion, what they would do is they contracted with a company for sales to increase the sales force.
So you were like a temp.
Basically, you're contracted. You're contracted for a year at a time, I think it was.
Okay.
That way, what happens is for the pharmaceutical company, right, you're not on the hook for, because there's a lot of expense to hire actually employees, right? And there's a whole process if you're going to fire them or lay
Well,
them
and if
off.
the drug doesn't come to fruition,
So this is
what are they gonna do with all these people?
this
They're
is
gonna
a
fire
kind of
them
a
all.
simple way to bring on a sales team, but then ultimately have more easy to let them go in case something like that happens. Now, what happens then, but then the drug gets approved or whatever, after about a year or two, then what happens is then the company absorbs them in as employees. So long way of saying, you can contract anything, right? You just have to understand your labor laws in your state and all that to see the best way to go about it. But that's a way, number one, to vet out the people, develop them. If it doesn't work out, can let them go easily and then bring on some other people and hopefully they'll work out. So that's one way to kind of start to ramp up your team and get to know these people. And also even I think they still have 90-day trial periods or 90-day probation periods a lot of times too. Even if you do hire people, you've got 90 days to be able to say, okay, yes or no, and you can let them go without cause. Anyways, there's ways to ramp up. But ultimately too, when you're bringing people on, okay. So anyways, all to say is there's ways to kind of bring people on without you getting on the hook for employing people right away and gives you time to really develop them and vet them out. Also, it's not just about bringing people on, but really investing making sure you have a process to not only train them in the outset, but continually develop them along the way. A lot of people think, once you've done the initial training and onboarding, they should just learn,
Turn
right?
them loose and they should know how to do it.
Yeah. The reality is people learn at different speeds and different ways. So you got to make sure you're intentional about bringing them along, especially that first year. The first year is crucial, regardless of how skilled and how great their resume looks. You always want to make sure you're investing in your people along the way.
Well, and I want to say too, if one of you is more discerning or a friend, somebody that's really discerning, have them in on the interview process because they can help you and save you a lot of time and money. I know Dave Ramsey says if he's hiring somebody himself, his wife is not involved in the business at all, but they go to dinner and he takes the wife. And if the wife says hire him, he hires him. If she says differently, he does that too. He says because she's very discerning.
Yeah. So those are the top reasons for business struggles. Is 1 and 2 are basically money issues, money management issues. And of course, the third one we just covered briefly is the human capital. And we'll maybe have to do a bigger portion, a bigger episode on this because it is a common issue that we hear.
Mhm.
A new client we just onboarded not too long ago talking about it, and the current client right now just had a call this morning about that. So, anyways, this is a very common issue, and as business owners, that's not usually our gift and our skill is training people. It's we're good at our craft. we're not signing up to being developing people, right? But it is very important. And so that's a skill that you're going to have to learn up, or at least have to bring somebody on that's really gifted in that area.
Because that can be so expensive, like hiring and firing people and people coming and going all the time. It's very costly.
Hey, if this resonated with you, which if you're still listening, it must, regardless of some of the rambling I had in the very beginning, hopefully all this all made sense. Go ahead and share this with another married entrepreneur that needs to hear this because, again, money management issues is definitely an Achilles heel for most business owners. So just get good at it. And hopefully just at least prompts you to really get serious around really understanding how to manage money well in your business. So until next week, God bless. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.